Hello, welcome to another topic of advertising, legal and ethical issues in advertising. Our subject expert is Simrat Gulati and I am Monica Verma. Advertising helps in building the brand in the market and ensuring the success of the brand. It is an important tool for the long-term achievements of the brand. As advertising is a commercial activity and involves profits and returns on investment, it is constantly under review and scrutiny. One such scrutiny is about its ethics and legality. In trying to achieve the objectives, there are times and occasions when it may cross limits of legality, ethics, decency, or social responsibility. This is a big issue that is being discussed today, and we need to look at it to see how the industry manages it. Also, how our legal and social framework keeps things under control. So what we are talking about is a case of self-regulation and environmental control for the overall benefit of people and society. It is a fact that advertising agencies tend to go overboard when it comes to selling a product. Double meaning words, sexuality, violence, misleading, false and offensive advertising videos are now a part of our life. In the drive to get the attention and convince the consumer, the thin line between the right and the wrong is often crossed. Advertising communication is a mix of arts and facts subservient to ethical principles. In order to be consumer-oriented, advertisements will have to be truthful and ethical. It should not mislead the consumer. If it so happens, the credibility is lost. For parents and teachers, the greatest worry pertains to how children will perceive and incorporate the meaning of these ads in their young minds. Our discussion today can be divided into two parts: ethical issues and legal issues. Both are distinctly different from each other. We find that some differentiation is there and we need to look at things separately. Ethical issues deal with social concern and responsibility. Enforcement cannot be forced. It is more on a voluntary basis. Legal issues relate to the law and there are definite enforceable methods available. Based on this, we find that certain areas come under the ambit of legality and can be dealt with immediately and decisions can be implemented. Whereas for others, only a directive can be passed and implementation is voluntary or optional. Laws pertaining to advertising are explicit and clear and of course are based on ethics and responsibility. Certain products and services cannot be advertised or promoted using the mass media as they are objectionable as a product or habit. Alcohol and tobacco ads are not allowed as these products are known to be injurious to health. They can cause cancer and its packaging also carries warnings to this effect. Baby foods not being allowed to advertise for another reason. India is a developing economy where a major part of the population lives with the minimum of resources and our healthcare facilities are also being stretched to the limit. Medically, mother's milk is the best nutrition for the infant and causes the least economic burden on the family. Keeping this in mind, India has signed the International Convention for Promoting Breastfeeding and Mother's Milk amongst its population. To support this, there is a ban on advertising for baby foods that are used as a substitute for mother's milk. This is done to discourage wrong habits among the people. Here again we see that the packaging carries a warning information the consumers that mother's milk is ideal for children up to the age of 6 months. This of course brings us to the topic of surrogate advertising. Surrogate advertising is advertising which embeds a brand or product message inside an advertisement which is ostensibly for another brand or product. There are a number of reasons for companies to use surrogate advertising. One of the most common reasons is to circumvent a ban on direct advertisements of particular products.
क्या कर रहा है यार? Think big. Make it large.
Royal Stag Med Music. It's your life.
Okay, thank you. Hey, back off!
क्यों डूड? अकेले अकेले?
आपके बगैर? ना.
फिर से अकेले अकेले?
अरे ना. Hayward's 5,000 soda.
यारों का टशन.
Many nations have laws restricting alcohol and tobacco advertising. So companies use surrogate advertising to market their products. Techniques used might include advertising another product with the same brand name, sponsoring community events, issuing public service announcements, or sponsoring sports teams. All of these activities technically do not violate the ban on direct advertising, but they still get consumers familiar with the company's branding. This clearly meets the legal requirements, but what about the ethics? Advertisers need to ensure that their ads are not offensive or violating the laws of the land. Ads should not violate the basic standards of decency, morality, and religious beliefs of the viewers. In India, certain ethics must be followed while creating ads. Advertisements promoting wrong habits are also part of objectionable ads. A few years back, there was an ad for a washing powder that showed school children using their pens to spray ink on each other. The ad proved the good washing ability of the detergent, but there was an objection to it, and the ad was considered offensive and had to be removed. The objection was to this concept of throwing ink at each other. It was felt that the ad was encouraging this behavior, or rather giving sanction to this idea, and thus promoting wrong habits in children. Another aspect of ethics is to do with ads addressing children or targeting them and thus tempting them. We know that children are able to influence brand choices at home to a considerable extent, and we call this pester power. But are children equipped to take such decisions? Are they mature enough to handle such issues? Don't parents give into this pressure, keeping in mind the small families and their nuclear structure? Aren't brands using it to their advantage by targeting ads to children and enticing them? And finally, is this ethical? So we come to the issue of ethics. And we see that this relates to societal norms and values, and there is no way of enforcing them other than by voluntary means. Advertisers and brands have to keep with the norms that are acceptable and are prevalent in the present times. Brands do behave responsibly and ensure that they do not offend people. Two important aspects under this are the targeting of children, the use of the female form. For the first case, we have the most recent example of Indian counterparts of 7 MNCs. 7 major food and beverage companies have signed a unique pledge committing themselves to responsible advertising and marketing to children. This is the first such self-regulatory pledge in India on the lines of the one in the European Union. Companies which have become signatories to the pledge are Indian subsidiaries of global majors such as Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, Nestle, Kellogg, Mars International, General Mills and Hindustan Unilever. The pledge provides a framework for food and beverage companies to help promote healthier dietary choices and a more active lifestyle for Indian children. Besides, it also demonstrates their commitment to social responsibility in marketing their products to children. Consequently, the companies could stand to forego the lure of unrestricted advertising on hundreds of channels that the Indian market offers. Though this is a voluntary move towards self-regulation, it could have been driven by the increasing focus on obesity among children and allegations that unrestricted consumption of fast food and beverages are some of the factors leading to it. There are diverse views about using the female form for advertising. Most good brands do not like to offend the consumer and try to keep off such ideas, but we still have ads that do not appeal to the senses of the consumer. Objections can be raised and some action can be taken, but what suits or does not suit a person varies from individual to individual. It becomes difficult to justify or prove. So most of the times these issues remain unsettled. Research has shown that the female form creates a sensation and raises excitement, but there is a very thin line between the aesthetic and the unaesthetic. That is where the advertising fraternity felt the need for a body dealing with self-regulation. Issues that are not within legal implementation but deal more with ethics are viewed and dealt with here. Thus, we have the Advertising Standards Council of India, ASCI. In order to enforce an ethical regulating code, the Advertising Standards Council of India was set up. It was inspired by a similar code of the Advertising Standards Authority in England. It basically hopes to ensure the truthfulness and honesty of representations and claims made by advertisements and safeguard against misleading advertising. To ensure that advertisements are not offensive to generally accepted standards of public decency. To safeguard against indiscriminate use of advertising for promotion of products which are regarded as hazardous to society or to individuals to a degree or of a type which is unacceptable to society at large, and to ensure that advertisements observe fairness in competition so that the consumers need to be informed on choices in the marketplaces and canons of generally accepted competitive behavior in business and are both served. So ASCI regulates ads and brands on objectionable ads, ads that are in bad taste, misleading ads, copying or imitation of ideas and concepts, and other issues that can disagree with the consumer. Complaints can be registered and then further action is taken after introspection and discussion. Objection to ads relating to distasteful ideas and visuals have been raised and complaints filed. Many of the cases have been redressed after consideration. Ads making false claims, especially for medicinal products or cosmetics, are another area where ASCI has settled matters. The Drug and Magical Remedies Act has provisions to control the advertisements of drugs in certain areas and to prohibit the advertisement for certain purposes of remedies alleged to possess magic qualities and to provide for matters connected therewith. There were cases of brands copying the ads of a competing brand, and again ASCI settled the complaint. An important point with self-regulatory bodies is that a consumer has to register a complaint or raise an objection, and only then is the matter taken into consideration and settled. Also, opinions may differ and members of the decision panel may not come to a consensus depending on varying perceptions. What we need to conclude is that there is a method available for looking into the ethics and value systems of the advertisers. Related to this is the concept and interpretation of comparative ads. Ads that compare one brand with another and try to prove the superiority of one over the other are what we classify as comparative ads.
टाइट है खुशबू है और सफेदी भी और क्या चाहिए हम
मम्मी आंटी चौक क्यों गई?
डाइट से कहीं बेहतर सफेदी ले रिन अब चौंकाने वाले दाम में। नया रिन सिर्फ 25 रुपए में।
Nothing sounds better than pizza and Pepsi.
These are Australia's 2 leading breakfast biscuits. They don't look much different, do they? But they are. Because Vitabrits has no added sugar, not a single grain of it. Vitabrits still has all the vitality you'd expect from a whole grain wheat biscuit. Vitabrits for vitality. But not for added sugar.
Comparison can be direct and the competing brand can be named, or the message is indirect wherein the comparison, the competition is not named but just indicated. These come under the ambit of both legal and ethical issues. Legally, if the facts are correct and are supported by data, or put in other words, the facts would hold in a court of law, such messages can be made and sent. The only thing is that in doing this, at times degrading the competing brand becomes distasteful and thus ethically wrong. It also reflects badly on the brand making such claims. Also, it could amount to defamation of the competition and come into the legal area and action taken accordingly. So, comparative advertising has to be handled well, and accuracy or correctness of the message as well as the aesthetics and content are to be taken care of. The Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act 1969 deals with any misleading, false and wrong representation either in writing, that is in advertisements, warranty, guarantee, etc., or oral at the time of sale, actual or intended, even if actual injury or loss is not caused to the consumer or buyer constitutes as unfair trade practices. So comparative ads have to take cognizance of this. Laws that deal with advertising cover various aspects. So we have the provision to take legal action against advertisements that are based on caste, race, nationality, color and creed, goes against any provision of the Indian Constitution or ridicules the father of the nation, the national emblem, part of Constitution or the image of a national leader or a state dignitary, incite people towards criminal activity, cause disorder and violence in the country, breach laws or glorify obscenity or violence in any form, glorify terrorism, communal massacres, criminality and so on, depict women in a deprecating manner, display distasteful visual content that goes beyond the established norms of good taste and decency, exploit and encourage social evils like child marriage, bride burning and dowry system, that advertise for alcohol, baby foods and tobacco and products containing tobacco. There are provisions available under the law for dealing with these cases. The following acts are used for the legal implementation of issues relating to advertising: Drug and Magic Remedies, Objectionable Advertisement Act 1954, Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act 1969, Consumer Protection Act 1986, Defamation Act 1963. As a brief summing up of this topic, we see that advertising will not be permitted under the law if it is political or religious in nature, deals with goods and services that are defective or have deficiencies, misleads the public to infer that the item has some special, miraculous or a supernatural quality which is anyways difficult to prove, the audio and video of which is excessively loud, that endangers the safety of children or produces any sort of perversion or interest that prompts them to adopt or initiate unhealthy practices, that is offensive, indecent, suggestive, vulgar or repulsive in its theme. Ethically also, it would offend the sentiments of the consumer or the public, so should be avoided. The advertising is for the brand and should be an aid for building the brand. In no way should it become bigger than the product or the brand it advertises and hamper the progress of the brand building activity. It would be appropriate to remember the golden words of David Ogilvy, the famous ad guru. A good advertisement is one which sells the product without drawing attention to itself. That is all for today. Thanks and take care.